camera off and make the live audience happy. Since we're live with Joey Pugh, happy birthday, buddy. We're
That's
going to
right.
kick right
Thanks.
off. We're going to kick right off. I teed you up. You fell for the trap. This is not about business today, Joey. It's about me telling you happy birthday. It's the whole goal of this was for me to bring you on live. Right now we're live through for the millions in attendance at home. So everyone gets the opportunity to celebrate your birthday. So
That's
happy
good.
birthday.
Thank you. Thank you. Everybody
Happy
should look this good at 52.
everybody needs the opportunity to just stop screenshot so you know what you need to look like at 52 years old.
That's exactly right.
Um we got some questions here, folks. I was just picking with Joey, but it is his birthday. Let me tell you who we've got on here for about the next 30 minutes. So if you're a small business owner, if you're thinking about starting a business, especially if you're getting ready to move into a space, a brick and mortar space or any kind of retail space, anything that where people are going to be going in and out, this is a guy that I've learned that you want to talk to first. And he's also somebody I grew up with. We've been around each other for at least probably 40 or 30 to 35 of that 52 of his years. He and I have been around each other, and someone I consider a really good friend of mine. I was the fifth best man in his wedding, if you want to throw it back that far. But today on the podcast, we're joined by Joey Pugh, a seasoned professional in fire safety and emergency services with a background that spans from roles from fire marshal to his current position at VSC Fire and Security. Joey brings a wealth of experience and insights into the world of fire protection and public safety. Man, so here I'll tell you. All right, I'm going to tell you how I teed it up, and then you can take it over for a little bit. But I have 5 questions that business owners have submitted. I kind of told everybody, hey, got this expert coming on. Someone who can definitely save you a lot of headache if you talk to him first. But I have 5 questions that's been submitted in for you to take a stab at and just give your advice and guidance on that. But before we get to that, what's going on in your world, Joe Pugh?
Uh, Today's my birthday, so trying to make it through that.
Got any big
But
plans?
no, not really. I mean, this week the kids going spring break, so we'll be heading to Florida. So I just use that as my birthday getaway.
No.
So, but other than that, that's it, man. Kids running in every direction, playing sports and
Lots of
travel ball
sports.
and stuff like that. So yeah, I mean that's it, man. You just life catches up with you, so you got to stay in. You got to reach out and try and grab it and hold on to it as long as you can. I reckon.
Yeah, yeah. Which we got to try to get 50 more. Feel like at least set the plan in place to try to get there.
Yeah, but I want the next 50 to be easier than the past 50.
I don't know. You've had it pretty easy. You've surrounded by good people. I know
Yeah.
your friends
Oh,
network. You've had some dang good friends.
yeah, but there was it's it ain't always been rainbows and bucket full of gold. I mean,
And I think I've give you props to that a lot of times. This is a Joey grew went through plumbing world and ambulance world and all
oh
sorts of paths and this whole journey of ultimately be able to wear the title as fire marshal in one of the larger cities in Virginia. And I think that's a testament to who you are as a person and the relationships that you create. If you There's very few people in the world when you mention your name that is not going to find the positives and the impact and the positive impacts that you've made on them. There's probably some folks out there that would disagree with me, but that's a small circle that we could probably count on one hand.
yeah, I would say that in previous roles, there was probably a few people that was not always excited to see me at their doorstep of their business, but those working relationships has led me to ending one career and starting another career, and I tend to fall back on some of those relationships and the relationships that you built throughout those years in the fire department, fire marshal's office, that they remembered, the relationship that we had, and it was always on a good foundation. So I've been able to go from enforcing stuff that they have to now having them as customers for the business that I work for now.
But you touched on something I wanted to pull out and pause for a second. In your old job as fire marshal, you would do fire inspections, you go do whatever that task might look like, but you had to interact with a business owner. And sometimes that was negatively because of whatever that reason might be. And we're going to get into some questions. But if you have a scenario you want to throw out, that's fine. But here's what I'll tell you: that's why we're here today, is so we can try to put as much education as we can out there, so everyone's aware. Like, hey, these are simple little things that you need to be doing, or and here's what I'll tell you, folks, and you correct me here, Joey, because I'm learning alongside of my audience today. Is if it might cost you a little money up front, but it's going to save you a lot of money on the back end.
Oh, most definitely. If you understand what you're supposed to do or have any idea of what you're supposed to do, it's always better to be proactive instead of reactive. And you find that with larger businesses, smaller businesses. If you let your stuff go and don't maintain it, it's an issue coming in on the backside to fix it because you haven't done the proper maintenance in the beginning. And some people may not know what is required for that maintenance or what the regulations are to be able to do that. And that's the biggest thing is education. People only know what they know. So educating them on what they need to know, how that looks as far as a fire code, and keeping up with the maintenance of their life safety in their building. That's the biggest thing is just getting the education out there to them.
You're you are the absolute authority on this, and you get brought up in conversations that I have in just small business coaching. You're someone that I lean on a lot when I'm trying to work with a new client, in whatever capacity I might be working through. Is you're someone that I definitely value the opinion, and I am all about you being on the front side of that. So let me kick off to our first question. Hey Joey, I'm getting ready to open my first retail space. What are the absolute must-haves when it comes to fire suppression and safety systems before opening day?
Well, a lot goes into that based off is it a standalone space? Is it, what's the square foot? What is there in the space? Is it something you've built new versus something that's been renovated? You know, and that there's a lot that goes into that. But typically, if you're going into a smaller space retail, the the Dollar Generals, that size building of the world, or maybe you're in a strip mall. Typically, based off what was existing, may have required that sprinkler system or fire alarm or just extinguishers to be there. So, really determining the size of your space, what you're going into, what your new certificate of occupancy is going to be. There's a lot of factors that go into it. So it's not as simple as saying, oh, well, I need this, I need this. There's a lot of benchmarks, parameters based off what you're trying to go in there and do. So um, that's the biggest thing is understanding the type of occupancy that you're going to be going to, and then understanding what regulation falls in that type of occupancy.
Where does, all right, so that's a great question. I ran into this here recently, and you'll take me where the conversation probably needs to go through zoning. Where does that business owner, where's kind of that starting spot, or where's probably the first place that they need to go to kind of seek that information where to help bookend of what they can and can't do inside that space?
I mean, if you're in a locality, always reach out to somebody, a local AHJ, which whether it be the fire official, building official. I know people don't like to ask a lot of times because it kind of opens that can of worms, puts you in a spotlight where people know, okay, you're moving in here. But as I said earlier, it's better to be proactive and go, hey, I'm thinking about opening this business in this space. What is it that I need to do to move forward and be compliant with the code?
Yeah.
Don't always think that the fire marshal is there to be a bad person, because in the localities that have that fire marshal or the state fire marshal, they're there for knowledge. They want to be able to pass along that knowledge to you because it makes their job easier to come into a place that has adhered to the codes, knows exactly what's supposed to be there. Then they're not walking through the door going, well, you should have done this, done this, done this, and then you're blindsided. So take advantage of those localities that have that building official or fire official. Reach out, just go to their planning office, call the fire marshal, call the fire department. They'll get you to the whatever locality you may be in, because they want to educate you as much as anybody. They don't want to be the bad guy when they walk into your business. And the more you know in the beginning or up front for your business, it just helps you out on the backside when they come in to do their inspections and they'll have the knowledge to pass that along to what you may need to get that business going. And then you're not blindsided once you get in 6 months. It's like, oh, I didn't know I needed to spend all this money to do that. You kind of know up front what the cost, what the expectation of life safety that should be there.
Everybody's blowing you up, man. It's happy birthday time. Your buddy Fernando chatting in, reaching in on the chat to tell you happy birthday.
I know. I see it.
He's old Fernando calling in from the West Coast. The internet is a powerful tool.
That's all the way from California.
That's all, yeah. I'll tell you, man, this is we got a wide reach today. We're reaching all the way out to the West Coast. So what we'll tell you is Joey and I both are based out of Virginia. So some of this, some of the things that you might hear us say or talk or whatever, we're trying to be as broad as we can, but we are a lot of our information is going to come from the Virginia side of the world. So
the state code for us and the fire code for us. Yeah.
So we're going to go to question number 2, Joey. I run a small manufacturing shop. What are some common fire hazards business owners overlook, and how can we stay ahead of them?
Let me dissect that one here for a second, because I looked at it and I was thinking, and like I said, I don't want to be too broad, but
I think Bill, I think one of the things I remember in working in a little bit of light industrial was just how we store. You helped me one time, like how we stored our stuff.
Yeah.
We had our fire cabinet. I was smart, like we had different things, but we had. You were like, hey, you got paint over here, you got paint over there, you got paint. Put it all in one place. Stop, just have it in one area so it's not. I remember you giving me that advice one time.
Yeah, when it comes to manufacturing, it's still a little bit on the broad spectrum, but most of those places are going to be big enough where they have that sprinkler system, where they could potentially have what we refer to in our world as a foam system. Is there chemicals? Is there a room that's full of paints and thinners? And in the manufacturing world, it's typically most of those are going to be, unless it's something really small, the sprinkler, the maintenance or the routine stuff on the sprinkler inspections, fire alarm, testing your devices, extinguishers, if it's like where they do localized welding or cutting on some metals and things like that. Extinguishers have to be within I think your code says 30 feet of any welding that takes place. It may be a certain size extinguisher, depending on where you're doing it at in that building. And that's just to have that local life safety with that extinguisher in place and not wait for it to expand and get out of control and set your sprinkler system off. The biggest
having those tanks and cages, is that part of it?
Well, it's more so any of your facilities or your manufacturing thing, like the welding or the arc, the tanks. Chained up by code. They have to be chained. They can't be just freestanding. They have to be where they can't tip over. They can't fall, because there's things that they're under so much pressure. So if you turn one over and it knocks the head off, guess what? It's like a missile going somewhere, and you hope that somebody's not in the way. But it's little things like that, no extension cords, making sure everything's plugged straight into the wall. It's just the little things that people take for granted, it depends on when the building was built. Well, I don't have enough receptacles here to plug in for the power I need. Let me go get a power cord. Well, then that power cord becomes the power cord for another surge protector. And it's just those little things like that. But manufacturing, it really depends on what you manufacture. If you have paint booths, some of those will they have to have filters. They may have to have a suppression system. Some are enclosed painting systems where you can take them inside and paint. Those have a specific type of suppression system in some of those systems. Some are just protected by the overall sprinkler system that's in the building.
Let's say somebody's riding dirty here, Joey, and they're like this. They're listening right now, and they're kind of cringing in their chair, and they're like, I might be I might be unsafe. Does VSC, do you guys, is that something where you come alongside and just, is there a console to where you can go in and work with that business owner just to say, hey, here's where you're kind of hanging your butt out. This is what you can do. Is that a service that you all do?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a phone call away for me to say, hey, I don't know what I got. Can you come look at it and tell me what we got and what we need? And it's as simple as that. But it's a matter of walking through and looking at your sprinkler system, looking at your fire alarm. What other areas that you might have in the building? You may have a server room that has a FM 200 system that just covers the server room for all your computers. If you're in manufacturing, you
What's
may.
FM 200 mean?
I think it's just a standard, or it's the type of, it's like a halon system is what
I
it
got you.
is.
So it's a sprinkler or a
Well,
fire
it's
suppression
basically,
type system.
yeah, what it does is it's a charge. It has a little nozzle in the room, and basically what it does is without it doesn't allow the sprinkler system to be in that room unless it's on like a pre-action system. But obviously, if all your computer servers are in this room, the last thing you want is be introduced into water. So
Yeah.
what'll happen is they build this room. It's kind of compartmentalized. They put this type of chemical system in there that basically at the time of the system, it's going to suck the oxygen out, put the chemical in there, and it basically eliminates all the oxygen. Without oxygen, fire is not going to burn. So, and it's not near as harmful on the systems as it would be if you introduce water or like a regular fire extinguisher in there to it. It's just kind of a redundant system to create less damage for what you're trying to protect.
Um, so make sure we're gonna make sure we put your number in the show notes. That way if folks want to get in touch with you, your website's in here. I'll make sure that I drop the phone number in there while we're going to question number three. Three for Dale, Joey. Three for Dale. Quick question.
Yeah.
Quick question, Joey. How often should a business get its fire extinguishers, sprinklers, and alarms inspected? And what happens if we fall behind?
Fire code's going to tell you that the standard is an annual inspection for sprinkler, fire alarm, extinguishers. Kitchen hoods are a little bit different. Code requires that to be done on a semi-annual basis every 6 months. So if you fall behind, well, let me go back to this. On that, I always tell all my customers I will give you a price for doing the inspections based off what the code says. But then sometimes it's as simple as your insurance may be a little more restrictive in what the code is. Your insurance may require you to say, hey, we want it done twice a year. There are some NFPA standards based off the type of facility or the type of use group that you fall in, whether it be like a nursing home, assisted living. They may require a quarterly inspection on your sprinkler and a semi inspection on your fire alarm, just because of the clientele that's there. It's more elderly. They're going to have a little bit more of an issue getting out in that emergency situation. So they want the standard to be, hey, we're going to come in and look at the sprinkler system every 3 months, quarterly inspections, semi-annual inspections. But typically for the fire code, everything falls into an annual basis, except for kitchen hoods. And then the cleaning of the kitchen hoods it's based off how much your cooking volume is. How much do you do cooking? Your fast food restaurants of the world, typically they're cleaned every 3 months. Your local church, they may only need to be cleaned once a year. Your school systems, they don't fry foods like they did 35 years ago. Everything's baked, boiled, that type of thing. So your school systems may only be cleaning their hood once a year. So, it depends on your volume of cooking and the type of food that you're cooking and the appliances under the hood. So
What about more? Here's what I'll tell you. You may have touched on this. I got wrapped up listening to the other value there. On the fire extinguisher side, about every business has fire extinguishers in them. Is that an annual inspection? Did you mention that?
Annual inspection on extinguishers.
Um,
Yep. Now we have some places that they want paper documentation monthly, that they want to pay and not have any liability or any responsibility for their extinguishers on a monthly basis. Now that's way over and above and beyond, but that might be part of a stipulation that their insurance goes, well, we want that done.
Right. So you take me, I was going to ask that. Could that be something that helps lower a premium, or maybe it's part of mitigating the risk or
Now,
something other?
now that I don't know. That's
Yeah.
more on the insurance. Your side of the world is the insurance, and I can tell you in some settings like the hotel world sometimes just to have that brand or that name, they're actually more restrictive than the code. So for you to have the Hilton or the Holiday Inn, it may be something there that their brand requires them to have two full inspections a year. It just
Yeah.
depends on what brand or title that they're tied into.
See, you kind of teed us into that next question. Question number 4. Um, Joey, I've heard insurance companies require certain fire safety compliance. What should I be asking my fire protection provider to make sure I'm covered?
Uh, typically, if you already have all your life safety in place and your insurance, I would like to think sometimes some of your larger insurance companies, they may send somebody out to do a walkthrough. I've seen it where insurance companies require each business, if it's a specific insurance company, they may tell you to paint all your sprinkler pipe red because when they walk in, they want to be able to see it. But you also, at that point, they're going to tell you that you can't have any wires on it. There can't be nothing hanging from it, no data cable, no absolutely nothing. So there's some restrictive things. I always say when I go out and talk to customers or potential customers, I'll quote it for what you want as a customer or what the code may require, but always check with your insurance because based off that use group, if you are in flammable liquids or you are in something else, they may require a more strenuous inspection program for your insurance, for you to hold that insurance, for them to be your insurance company, as opposed to what just the annual part of the code requires.
I think I would add to that being I had a space that I rented one time. So insurance wise, if you're buying the building, you need insurance to cover the building.
Mm-hmm.
If and what you'll find in a commercial space, if you're going to rent let's go say you're going to rent a 2,000 square foot space and you're going to put your business in it, along with some of the other stuff Joey talked about, is you're going to need insurance on your space.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to need your so the building most leases, the building owner covers the rebuild of the building, and then your insurance covers the rebuild out of your particular unit. So whatever you have inside of your space, in my case, it was a gym. So I had to replace my walls, my flooring, my weights, all the things like that. So I needed a policy that was enough to cover that part of the build out. And then the other thing I'll tell you on that, folks, is when you get in just the insurances, we actually had a fire. We had a fire at one of our fitness locations pre-COVID, and the biggest thing I can tell you, the fire was contained to the kind of the middle unit. We were on the kind of the right side in tenant, but we caught all the smoke and water damage. So what we thought visually was going to be, oh yeah, we're good. We ended up absorbing the majority of the damage from water and smoke, and that doesn't get on a carpet. Like as much as I think Serpro, whoever those companies were, ozone machines and sprays and bombs and all the stuff that we put in there, I could walk in that building today and still smell that faint odor of smoke because it just doesn't get away. So when you're looking at that side of it, is just know that sometimes having a little more that can just really help you overhaul that building into just fresh everything is going to create a better customer experience for you, in my opinion, too.
Well, and you mentioned a good point a while ago, but one of the biggest things, and I just thought of another point, and I'll go there in a second. One of the biggest things I always tell everybody is to make sure I don't get into the lease part of it, but when I was in the fire marshal's office, one of the biggest things that you would find is understand what is in your lease, your
You
agreement.
do.
Because I had went to different strip malls, and sometimes the management company for the strip mall may cover the sprinkler and the riser and your sprinkler inspection, but then you as the tenant were responsible for your individual um, extinguishers, or they may be responsible for your exit or emergency light because it is affixed to the wall and you can't take that with you. They're not going to pay for you to buy your extinguishers or you to get your extinguishers inspected every year, because if you move your business, you take your extinguishers with you. They're basically yours. But I have seen in some scenarios where each individual space. So let's just say when you with a gym or a jewelry store or a shoe store, I have seen it where the management company held the tenant responsible for a fire inspection just for the sprinkler heads in their space. So that was really kind of an eye-opening experience for me, because I thought it was kind of odd, but that's what was in their lease. And some of them were kind of surprised with like, well, how do I do that? Well, you have to call a third party company, which is the company that I worked for now, but not at the time, to come in and individually do a walkthrough, because the fire marshal is wanting, a report or to show that, hey, this building's been inspected. But all the management company took care of was the riser in the back, the room where the sprinkler system come in, and then everything else was the every other tenant's responsibility. So it's kind of an odd scenario, but make sure that you're not. I'm not going to say don't make sure that you don't sign up for that, but make sure you know what you're signing up for
Yeah.
when you do that. Um, the other point that I was going to say on the residential side is, if anybody and everybody, I wish people really knew about renter's insurance, because there is so many fires that happen in residential settings. And for $10 a month, I think on an average, it might be a little bit more, but there was so many people in my 21-year career in the fire department, and about 18 years of doing fire investigations, talking to people in the street, and you would say, hey, do you have renter's insurance? If it was 400 fires, 390 of them had no idea or did not have renter's insurance, and then they've lost everything.
Yeah.
So and that's something that is not. I mean, it's not advertised. You're not going to see it on a billboard going down the interstate, but it's the little things out there that's like, for $10 a month, you've worked hard for what you have. So for $10 a month, protect what you have, and you're not standing there in the street watching everything that you've worked for, you have, and there's no way to get it back. Because if it wasn't consumed in the fire, just like Jeff was saying, it's either covered up in soot, it's going to smell. There's some things that you never, I mean, there's some things in that fire you may lose that you want back that you'll never get back. But for a minimal amount of money, to be able to replace some of the things, that's one thing that is truly not, people just don't realize it's out there.
The one thing that you see in commercial leases is this language is detailed out. What Joey said is, when you go to sign a commercial lease on a property, all the expectations is outlined there. The last thing you
Yeah.
want to do is not read that, because you could be responsible for replacing the entire HVAC unit, or all sorts of craziness that you just need to know, so that when something happens, you know where you stand at financially. You don't see that kind of language typically in a private renters. There's not a
Right.
lot of
Yeah.
language you see in private rent, because it's not a requirement. It's not something that they have to put in there that's going to be an economic impact. So you're absolutely spot on with just the lack of education, and it's not that expensive. But I've had friends, and I think we probably know people that that had a fire and they were displaced when they were renters, and they were like, hey, who's going to pay for my stuff? And landlord's like, that's not my job to pay for your stuff. And it's
Yeah.
a
And
huge disconnect.
I'll give you a good example. Is we had I won't give names, but we had a mall in our locality. The mall paid for the inspection for the entire mall at all times. So we had a small fire one night in one of the tenant spaces for the mall. Well, the mall, the water got out into the common spaces for the mall. The mall cleaned that up. At that point, any sprinkler head or any damage or anything that was still left within the confines or the area of the tenant was their responsibility. It was their responsibility to call the sprinkler company to come out and put the new head in, get the system back online, do all the water cleanup. If it was, if they had to call a restoration company to come in and do that, that was all on that tenant and not the mall. So it's and all that's in your lease, and that's just it's kind of eye opening when you're out there and you're doing these. When you're on the scene of this, and they're like, "Well, that's not our responsibility. That's going to be the tenants." And I'm like, "Oh, okay." So and they may not understand but that's the things that you got to make sure when you're doing this. Hey, whose responsibility is it mine or is it because that little sprinkler head could turn into a whether it's something accidental, you knock a sprinkler head off, water damage, does it go in your space throughout multiple spaces? Was it on the second floor versus the first? So make sure that you are looking at the fine print to be able to do that. And I know those are few and far between, but that's just some examples of what I've had in my career that's kind of like, oh wow, okay. For your insurances and your businesses and things like that, that's always something to look at.
It's good stuff, dude. Lots of gold there. We got one last question. Told you I'd try to keep you at 30 minutes. We right on time. Last one for you. If a business wants to grow or renovate, when should they involve someone like yourself to ensure that everything stays up to code?
um, I would say very early on in the process. Now, depending on what your expansion looks like, do you have a design professional, a registered design professional? Is it going to be an architect or something? What are you trying to, what are you going from and what are you going to? Because the type of use group that you may be or the size of the structure that you're expanding to is really going to dictate what's going to be required in the code for you to have. So once again, reach out to the fire official, the architects, the people that's going to go through the proper channels to get you where you need to be and help you understand what will be needed. I'm more than glad to be able to come out and talk to anybody, help you through that process, get you the contacts. Hey, you need to go here. You need to go there. This is something that's going to be a whole lot more than hiring your buddy or friend that does construction just to come out and redo some things. Because there's a lot more that goes into that than when you get into the commercial world. There's a lot more that goes into that than just, oh, I want to add, 3,000 square foot over here. But if your building is already at a certain square footage and you add, well, guess what? Now you may have just crossed the threshold that you got to put in a sprinkler system or a fire alarm or something different. How do you compartmentalize that to keep from doing that? That's what you have to understand is there's benchmarks in the code that says, and I use this maybe example another time me and Jeff was on here is every fast food restaurant, 99% of them are built under a 5,000 square foot footprint. Why? Because 5,000 square feet is a threshold for sprinkler and possibly a fire alarm. So every fast food restaurant you go in, it's somewhere between 4,000 and 4,900 square feet, because that's the most restrictive. Your nice set down restaurants, steakhouses, that's because they hold 200-300 people. They're over that 5,000, the type of occupancy they are, it requires to have that. So you just got to be mindful of what you're wanting to do. And if you're doing it the right way and going through the proper channels, there should and always be those people there in line telling you what you need to do and what you're going to need to add to your property to make it compliant with what the code says.
You are a absolute wealth of information that folks, even at his age of 52, this man can rattle off all this advice, very unscripted and unprompted, just like he's a well-oiled machine that I've always known. And I'm telling you, dude, just from my experience, I work on the other side. I'm working with a business owner. I'm working with someone who's growing, who's somebody's already in business, and they might be on the negative side of needing Joey's help or what have you. So He hard of hearing, y'all. Look, you got two of them. Got two phones.
That's, I mean,
You got them both. Won't you do different? How you know which one's ringing?
that
That's
way,
why you grabbing both of them.
that way I don't have somebody's question going unanswered. They got two lines of communication.
But you ought to have different ringers. Old people don't know what phone to answer, man. You 52 now.
Well,
You
it
gonna
didn't
have to have
like the
different
computer.
ringers.
I mean, in my world, I don't even have an office phone anymore. It goes straight to a computer. So if one phone don't ring, I know it's the other phone.
It's 2025. Most people don't use an office phone. Joey,
well, we just
I'm giving you
transitioned.
all this big credit, man. Now look at you. We're still live.
I'm 52. I'm old school, man.
Old school.
I can remember the party line. You pick it up, and hear the neighbor talking.
Oh man, we had the party line, and then hey, me and Joey can take you back. We were original bag phone owners, man.
That's exactly right.
My first phone number was my first cell number was 0018.
Oh yeah, that's right. I do remember that one. Man,
What was yours?
I couldn't tell you, man. That was many moons ago.
I'm gonna post VSC's website again, and we're gonna get you some business. So, and then I'm gonna mentor you on vibration on silent. Tanya says, "Happy birthday, Joey." Got a call in from Tanya.
Thank you. I mean, it's just another day. Man gets to my age, you ain't worried about a year. You just worried about tomorrow.
Yeah. Dude, I want to thank you. Appreciate you. I know you. I know that phone's ringing off a hook from me from this episode.
Oh, no, it's good.
You don't owe me a thing. It's absolutely my gift to you to blow your brand up and what you're trying to do. I'm just picking, but I'm serious. Let me close this out, folks. Make sure you take advantage of this conversation that we got to have. There's a lot of value inside of here. You're going to know someone who needs to connect with Joey. Make sure we do that, because that was kind of the whole goal that he and I the other day was talking. I was like, hey, we just need to create a conversation and let me have some people send me some questions on the things that they're navigating and let you be the expert to help them. So, man, I appreciate you. I can't thank you enough. I hope you have a great rest of your birthday, and I can't wait for us to catch up again.
All right, buddy, man. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.